You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Imus.
And today we're going to do a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1095, titled Better Off Dead in This World. And you know what, Travis? I'm happy to see Oda has chosen to use the album single for your high school band in 2009.
How did you know?
I genuinely, the thing I guessed at mostly was what year you were in high school. I don't even know if I got that right.
The band was actually in junior high, but other than that, you nailed it.
Wow. I'm actually surprised at myself, and that's saying something. As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this chapter. So if you have not yet read chapter 1095, you got to go do it. You got to do it now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app. It's linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release, or whenever you want if you're subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we're subscribed to Shonen Jump. You should do the same thing. All right, so we have a lot of chapter stuff to go through. But you know, Travis, here's the thing. I know we have this world famous Discord and an email address people can use to hit us up whenever they want. And, you know, all these things are great. Everybody loves the Discord. It's the frontier of One Piece theory speculation in the In-Between Drafts universe, including everything you want to know about film, movies, TV, books, and more. But you know what? I forgot the link. I forgot where to find it.
Oh, it's in the show notes, of course.
See, every single time. And you have this look on your face like I'm underselling it.
No, I mean, no, you're not underselling it. You're just underselling the bit that we do because it's the only bit we've got.
I had to try something new a little bit. Everyone's starting to question my memory. You know, it's like you remember One Piece lore, but you keep forgetting, how email works.
How else are you going to make it all work? You don't have a Vegapunk brain. You can't just...
Wait a second, Travis, I just remembered. There is a way for people to message us anonymously using the World Wide Web. So yeah, you're right. If they wanted to hit us up, privately message us and they don't have Discord, there is a way to do that. The email. Yeah,
that's right. You mentioned it. We do have a fancy schmancy email address, and I bet you forgot what the address was because you had to squeeze all this new One Piece lore in there.
No, I have it right here. Here's the email address. It's Jinny is Bonnie's mom @gmail.com. No?
I mean, we'll get into that, but it's actually rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Oh, that's even better because that's the name of the show.
Yeah, it makes a little bit of sense. Just a little bit of foreshadowing, you might say.
Yeah. Well, so much for crocodile was a woman @gmail.com. That was taken.
Yeah, weirdly enough.
And I think that covers it. We've been having fun on the Discord. We've been having a good time. We want you there too. Travis, what's your favorite thing about the Discord? You check it every day.
My favorite thing about the Discord right now is, and this is completely unironically, I'm going to gas everybody in there up, is the use of spoiler tags because stuff is going absolutely crazy. And not just in like One Piece, but like in our other channels, people are very respectful using their spoiler tags where needed. So if you get a notification in the Discord, you're not going to see that notification and immediately be spoiled on something you haven't watched yet or you haven't read yet. You can be safe in knowing that even if you can't participate right away in a conversation, you're not going to get spoiled here, which unlike in Elon Musk's crazy internet wonderland, that could happen just by logging on, which I haven't done in a while, to be honest.
I was on there for a second the other day accidentally, and I was like, did I get anything useful from like notification wise on here? And the answer is no. And I was like, wow.
I get way more out of our Discord at this point than anything else. I spend way more time in the Discord now than on any social media. Yeah, it's where it's at.
And I do appreciate those spoiler tags because you know what? I'm not caught up on My Hero Academia, and there have been some big things happening there. I can tell because y'all are talking about it, but you know what? The spoiler tags keep me from finding out what it is. So I'm pretty appreciative of that myself.
Yeah, it's a great feature of Discord, and I really appreciate that our current Discord users are taking advantage of them. And like I said, if you join up, at least you know you're not going to have something ruined for you.
That's right. So there you go. The Discord, the link's in the show notes. It's Rookie Pirate Radio. We have our One Piece spoilers channel. We have a One Piece is Real channel. We have comics, manga, anime. It's everything you want and more. But of course, we do have to get into these main beats. It's going to be lots of fun. It's a big juicy chapter. Lots of W's for John, a few L's for Travis, but not a ton. So that's promising.
Yeah.
And you know what, Travis, it's good. It's good stuff because we're gonna be on break next week. And, normally we do a little bit of an anime check-in. We're feeling right now like maybe we're not going to do a check-in this week. Maybe it's just going to be all One Piece all the time. So that's what we're planning on right now. So let's feel it out. Let's see what happens.
Agreed.
And we still do. I think we're doing Frieren next week, right? That's going to be our round table.
That was our plan. So there's your homework, everyone.
There it is. Yeah, Frieren. It's on Crunchyroll. There's 6 episodes now, I want to say. 6 or 7.
Yeah, it'll be 7 by the time we cover it.
Yes, exactly. There you go. So let's get in this chapter, Travis. I'm ready.
Yes,
chapter 1095. Let's go. Better Off Dead in This World. Great name. I mean, very moody, very My Chemical Romance. All right, so the cover, we have a reader request. This one's a little fun. We see Buggy's nose being stolen by a squirrel. Very cute. I guess even though his nose is attached to his body, I guess it's the chop fruit thing. I don't want to overthink it.
I legitimately did overthink it for like 30 seconds. I was pretty sure that was attached to his. Oh wait, yeah, it's a.
It also looks a lot like it's. I guess it's a squirrel, but it looks more like a little monkey or like the tarsier thing. So I'm not sure why the translation says. I don't know. It's Oda. He's having fun. Let him do his thing.
I think you're right.
All right, so let's go through it. The chapter starts, and we see a bunch of Marines that are fleeing the area where Saint Saturn has appeared. The Marines are being told that they have to avert their eyes from his holy form unless they're a vice or rear admiral. So we're just kind of confirming some things that were set up in the last chapter, kind of checking in with like the state of the island before zooming back in where we left off, which is with Saint Saturn in his bull demon form. So this is right after Bonney has stabbed him with that random katana, and we see 4 vice admirals. At least I think they're vice admirals, and none of them are rear admirals, but I could be wrong. They're preparing to attack her for what she just did, but Saturn activates his demon eye thing, or whatever it is, and sends Bonney flying away from him and then catches her with his hand, but it also has like these like long fingernails. It's pretty creepy. So he catches her in his grip, and Sanji tries to intervene, but Saturn sends Sanji away without even touching him. It looks very powerful. Saturn removes the sword, and then the blood from his wound that Bonney gave him, it just vanishes, like almost like interdimensionally. It kind of reminds me a bit of like a Naruto with Obito, Toby, that whole thing. And then Sanji appears locked in like just kind of this severe pain. It's kind of hard to tell what's happening to him. The vice admirals rush in to apprehend the whole group, but then Saturn tells them to stand down and ready their weapons instead. He also chastises Kizaru for being sluggish, and Kizaru apologizes while still immobilized from Luffy's last attack. So it looks like it did end in pretty much a draw. So Luffy, by the way, is still down for the count. He can't even move or talk, and he's in his old man form. So Saturn goes in to attack Luffy with his spider talon foot thing. Fortunately, Frankie manages to punch Luffy out of the way, kind of comedically, with his strong right attack, and then he reaches out and grabs Luffy to try to protect him. Saturn reflects then on the Straw Hat's ability to cooperate, which is kind of marking that whole thing with like how pirates always betray each other, big Kaido thing. And Saturn says that he wants to see if their fate is strong enough to escape this desperate situation. He also calls out Vegapunk for his betrayal despite appreciating his great service to their military. So he's basically just kind of navel gazing because he's in full control of the situation. He asks which of Vegapunk's group should die from first. Should die from first to most least painful. Okay, it's hard for me to even say this. Which in the group should die first from least to most painful? That's it. So they can die with nothing but regret for their rebellion against the world government. At this point, no one can move because Saturn has used his eyes, and he starts squeezing Bonney, who says that Saturn killed her father. Saturn calls Kuma the descendant of a clan that once committed a grave crime against the world, the last survivor of the extinct Buccaneer people. So we have our revelation of what Kuma is. We then cut to Kuma's flashback, the one we've been waiting for, as the vice admirals aim for Bonnie's head. What's that, Travis? The Kuma flashback.
The Kuma flashback.
Oh, Travis.
Which we settled on. Hey, we settled on there would be a little bit more content, and then we'd go into the flashback midway through the chapter. That I'm looking at the little slider here. That looks like halfway. Just
I
saying.
don't know about that one, Travis.
Go back and check the tape.
The vice admirals then aim for Bonnie's head. It starts with Kuma telling Bonney he wanted to be a hero who could save the imprisoned and the suffering, just like Nika, the warrior of liberation. We're getting major revelations here. We then cut to 47 years ago in the Sorbet Kingdom in the South Blue, when Kuma was born to a buccaneer named Clap and a regular human. They're quickly found out, though, and enslaved for being buccaneers, and are gravely mistreated. Kuma's mother eventually dies, and his father tells him the warrior of liberation will come and save him someday. His father reveals that Nika is a legendary warrior whose story is told throughout their buccaneer heritage, that he'll show up and take him out under the sun to the freedom of the sea. Part of that directly references something that Orihime said in the Fishman Island arc in that flashback. His father starts to sing and dance, but is then shot and killed by a celestial dragon for being too loud right in front of Kuma. So Kuma had a tragic backstory. Who would have thought? Years passed to 38 years ago in the West Blue, where the Celestial Dragons have chosen the unaffiliated island of God Valley to host a native hunting competition. The king rages against his people, being killed for a game, but then is slain by Saint Figurlin Garling, then just a young holy knight who looks, you guessed it, like Shanks. In addition to the natives being hunted, and to be clear, like, he's not Shanks. I'm saying the speculation that the Garlings and Figurling Garling, that being Shanks, and we'll get to it. In addition to the natives being hunted, they've also added whom they call problem slaves and criminals to the manhunt, including, of course, Kuma, who tried to escape like we saw in that flashback some chapters ago, only we didn't know that it was in God Valley. Oh, wait, Travis, we didn't know that it was... Oh, one of us knew that it was in God Valley, didn't they? So someone guessed that.
Someone did guess it.
Someone did guess that. Yeah.
Someone did. I can't remember who it was though. You might have to refresh my memory now.
I could be right. Evan Griffin. No, there's not caught up. And then Kuma. He tried to escape, and then we even see Saint Saturn being informed of this, and he's remarkably the same age as he is now, despite this being so many decades ago. So I think, the long time theories that Saturn and the Gorosei are immortal, something you and I have entertained for a long time. There we go. I think it's all but confirmed at this point. Kuma is being yelled at for trying to escape by his fellow slaves, but they're interrupted by two other slaves who show up, a young Emporio Ivankov and a new character named Jinny, both of whom say they've heard Kuma has giant's blood. Jinny, who looks remarkably like Bonney, and that's where the chapter ends, with Ivankov, who kind of looks like Richard Simmons in this panel, which is kind of perfect. And he says the last line, "Well, I choose life. What about you?" We do have a break next week. And makes sense because there's a lot to really just kind of think about right now. The speculation, the theories have been flying left and right. We have all kinds of things going on here. I have a lot that I want to get into. You have a lot you want to get into. Where do you want to start first?
We might as well start from the top and talk about the non-flashback stuff, because I think
so. We'll do segment one. Yeah,
segment one, the immediate talk. Something I do want to call out before we even talk about Saturn is when the lower rank Marines are being told, "Hey, it's you got to get out of here." You get. I enjoy the line where they're like, "What's those flashes of lightning?" Just like, "Oh yeah, there are a bunch of people who don't know what hockey is."
Yeah.
Way to retroactively make that all work yet again, Oda. That you didn't just add it like halfway through your halfway point of this series to complicate things. That's fun. It's a good reminder that we have come quite a long way, because I have a very bad feeling about how this all is going to end.
Yeah, I wanted to point out how interesting it is that the Marines have only seen the Gorosei in portraits. And I think there's been some kind of chatter about how many Marines know about the Gorosei, what rank do you need to be? There's been speculation that there is an understanding that they exist, but people don't know what they look like. There's a lot of that chatter that goes around. And this kind of solidifies some notion of okay, there's portraits, they have some kind of presence. People know who they are. But as you can imagine, they very rarely ever leave Mary's Yo. Although in the flashback, they apparently did for this competition thing that no longer is a thing. So, or at least it's no longer a thing that we know of, I guess.
That we know of, right? Yeah. It very well could be a thing, which is nuts too. But yeah, we've got them running around here, and I think this kind of answers the question of at least most Marines are aware of the hierarchy of power.
Yeah.
I don't know that this confirms necessarily that normal people are aware of the Gorosei as a concept. Do they get written about in the newspaper? When edicts are issued, has Morgans interviewed them? He seems to have some kind of relationship with them. But it's still kind of wild that like are they a shadow government? They at least are kind of a shadow government, because if this is like their quote unquote true forms, which again, certain lines here really seem to want to make us think they are, rather than just a devil fruit transformation. I mean, Saturn says here, like, you know, why are you humans like this? Like a bunch of language, and I can't tell if that's meant to separate him as like, oh, I think I'm higher than you, or like, no, I'm really a bull demon yokai thing, man, actually. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
I know we already kind of discussed at length our reactions to Saturn's powers. You know, we see a little bit more of it. I mean, we've already kind of talked about, like, maybe, you know, is it a devil fruit thing? Is it not? That gets commented on directly by, I believe it was Vegapunk. Either Vegapunk or Frankie.
It looks like it, yeah.
I think it's Frankie who says that he can't move. It's like I'm being held down. And then I think it's Vegapunk who says, if this is not science, then it must be devil fruit powers. That makes me think that could still like lead to, this is something kind of beyond devil fruits or related to them in some way, but we can continue that. That's the ever-going debate.
I'm definitely going to entertain still the maybe it's not a devil fruit thing, at least until we get the name. It's just
or
like,
that it's like some kind of primordial kind of devil power related to the fruits, but different. I just feel like it has to have some kind of separation, because it seems broken as a power. And we really don't know. We don't. I still kind of, you know, I brought this up in the Discord, and there's good stuff happening in the Discord on a lot of these counts, just like the chatter around certain things. But worth pointing out that Stussy isn't around. She got injured. And Stussy's powers, we kind of assumed was some kind of devil fruit. I don't think the manga ever declared that it was a devil fruit, though. She kind of comes forth as like a succubi. And she also seems to have a thing where she doesn't age, and we weren't sure if that had to do with her cloning. And then there's also this idea that if she is a succubi, and there is like a story here where we're thinking of like characters who basically not only don't age, but have some kind of like a demonic connection to things. I think that Stussy could be a connection there. And then the cursed eyes thing I brought up too. So this is what I wrote in the Discord. I've been thinking about Saturn's eye powers. That led me down a mind rabbit hole to Eam's weird eyes. So if Eam has like the kind of patterns in his eyes, very similar to Mihawk's. And there's this theory I brought up before about like characters having cursed eyes, specifically Mihawk's, and hopefully someday Zoro's left eye that he might be saving for something, like when he finally goes up against Mihawk and he can't use it before then, or that it takes time for whatever thing that he's done with his eye for that to get paid off in whatever way. So that said, the idea is that these cursed eyes are related to the devil yokai powers, maybe, hence Zoro's connection to hell, being the king of hell. His remark earlier in Egghead when he said that Mihawk doesn't have any humanity in his eyes. And so, yeah, I wanted to bring that up, and like, it's not the most fleshed out thing. I'm just kind of pointing out certain parallels that could just be thematic parallels. It could just be stuff that Oda's sprinkling in for, you know, for moods, for vibes, or there could be a lore connection here. So what do you think though, Travis? Do you think that's going too far?
No, I actually like this idea quite a bit, because as you point out, Stussy has been sidelined, just, you know, shockingly out of this moment. Specifically, we see her incapacitate two people when her powers are revealed.
Yeah,
which is, you know, very, very similar to what we see going on here. You would assume that the Gorosei at least have had an audience with Stussy, or Stussy's been in the room with them, given her role in CP0. But also, we know that this is a God Valley flashback now. We know Saturn is there, and we know that the original Buckingham Stussy is a Rocks Pirates member, and it sounds like that's where we're about to go, as we may see if the original has a devil fruit power, or if this is something else. The only thing is that if Vegapunk is the one that created the clone, does he know what powers he's actually replicated? How much does he recognize it? It doesn't seem like much here,
right?
But who knows? It could be that he's replicated the original Stussy's devil fruit power without realizing it or fully understanding it. That's completely reasonable. And if it was going to parallel something or use that power to explain some more potential offshoots of devil fruit classes, she's probably going to show up in this flashback. So that is, I think it's an interesting call for sure.
We'll have to see, yeah, because it could just be one of those things where, yeah, Vegapunk just doesn't have a sense of what he's done here because he's not aware of what this power could possibly be. And if he's stumped, then I'm stumped. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, they are in a really tough situation right now. It really is hard to see what they can possibly do to get out of it. I know we've speculated on this is where Kuma shows up after the flashback. We also have the giant robot somewhere. So, we've talked about this before where we could have Luffy start his heart up again. So if enough time passes where Saturn is wasting time, essentially, and Luffy starts up his heart and the drum's liberation occur again, that could be what wakes up the robot. I also brought this up in the Discord that in the same way that we saw the drums of liberation when Luffy's heartbeat happens, the way that it summoned or seemed to activate the giant robot is kind of possibly connected to Kuma and what summoned him to Egghead, if that's really where he's going. Because so I went back to these chapters, back when we were starting like Ricky Pirate Radio, like pretty early on in it. And we were looking at, like we had met the giant robot. I think the first chapter we talked about was the hero deploys, which was a little bit after all of this. And basically Kuma leaves the revolutionary base at some point. And then it's not long after that Luffy activates Gear 5th. And so theoretically, you could say that the timelines are a little mushy, but it could be that in the same way the giant robot, is doing its thing, the Warrior of Liberation is summoning Kuma. And I think that's bolstered by the idea that like Kuma has a clear and now extremely relevant connection to Nika. One that if like we actually look back on all of his actions, really puts a lot of things into perspective. So I brought this up too in the Discord. Why did Saturn want to take Kuma's will away? You brought that up as a really good question. I think you were Quinn, I think it was, who was like, if it's like why? Like Kuma, no, you did bring it up last week. It's like if he's an android, like why would they take his will away? In a way that they didn't for other experiments, right? And if he is someone who his will is connected to Nika, then I could totally see why they would want to do that. So yeah, I mean, it opens the floodgates.
Yeah, and on that note, I think this does kind of give us a strong parallel to Nika, the original Nika or Joy Boy, when we think about this new Buccaneer revelation. About, hey, that sounds pretty piratey for one. Nice work there by Oda, even though the word has multiple connotations. The idea that Nika might not have been necessarily a giant, but a member of this race should be entertained. We don't know, for example, how big a Buccaneer could be, but if they are tied to giants, at least by lineage, that sounds pretty promising. I think that would line up pretty good. So that would be an interesting twist.
Also lines up with the third race that Big Mom doesn't have in her arsenal, right?
Right.
She doesn't have Lunarian. She doesn't have a giant. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this is our third one for sure, which, pretty much confirms, hey, this has been set up for quite a while. And I do, I do also think when it comes like Saturn wasting time and everything like that, I don't know that he is. Like you mentioned in the beats, he does seem very much in control of the situation, but I think it is very fascinating that he orders all the rear admirals, vice admirals to not engage. Like he's already thought this through. He's already 4D chessed this out, and he's decided that, we could just not create a chaotic situation where I can't focus on these guys and hold them back. Don't do anything that's going to cause chaos, because that's where a lot of these idiots in this room thrive. So no, we're not doing that. You just do what I tell you to do. You just hold your weapons there, and I will take care of the rest of this.
It's interesting. I had such a different reaction. And then it could very well be exactly what you're saying. I guess my reaction was that he wanted to play with his food a little bit, because he
absolutely wants to, but he's definitely operating on a different level than a Doflamingo, for example, when it comes to that aspect.
I can see what you're saying to the point of like, yeah, don't get involved because you're not going to help. I've got this and I want to deal with this myself. And I really want them to feel the pain. I don't want them to die from like a simple headshot. Because he says like, I want you to die with regret.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's think about Luffy's ability to take advantage of a situation. Not just his ability to get back up, though that is a factor. But if you bring in a bunch of extra bodies, and if we're, operating on the idea that Saturn's powers are based on sight, he has to see them to put pressure down, to use his attack that he used on Sanji and Bonney, anything like that. If you put more bodies in that situation, he either has to use that power on all of them. Maybe that splits his focus, makes it difficult to actually do for the more strong-willed characters. Side note, both Bonney and Sanji's heads do not explode versus that random Marine from last week. Maybe that complicates things. You create any kind of situation where a chaotic, unforeseen element gives a Straw Hat an opening, they can at least escape. They can at least get out of range. They can at least, Frankie's arms can extend, as Saturn now knows. So, Frankie could throw somebody if he absolutely needed to. Anything that could complicate this just makes it more of a hassle for him. And I think that speaks to his age and experience, that Saturn is not the kind of character who's just going to get baited into that or just let his, peons mess it up for him. He's kind of like, no, do not give them the opening that will allow them to mess this up.
So, it does look like the Marines are going to fire on Bonney before, like Vegapunk. It's she's still just a child. And we still don't know if that means that she's like a literal child, or if Vegapunk thinks that, everyone's a child because they're younger than him. Just want to put that out there. So, it really limits our options on what can happen next. And I think the Kuma flashback is going to bring that out. I think the obvious thing people are expecting is Kuma ex machina, right? He's going to show up possibly and, be that unforeseen chaotic element because, I don't see how Zoro's going to get away from Lucci in time. There's nothing he can really do. The other Straw Hats have their own things they have to take care of. I don't think we even see Atlas in this chapter, even in the background, if I'm not mistaken. It's I think we do actually. She's in the foreground at one point or 2 points.
She's just so big.
I love that, by the way, that Frankie gets a fun moment here, and it's great to me that Oda is letting him be such a presence in this arc. Not just because of the Vegapunk connection, but just because I think that we are setting up for some big stuff with him. Specifically, I know we've talked about like little pet theories of like, what if he got the pawpaw fruit after Kuma dies, fun stuff like that. What if what he does has something to do with the Thousand Sunny and, all that good stuff. But we can save that conversation for when we find out what happens. I want to dig in on this line where, he says, Saturn says like a pirate crew that cooperates, and that was something he failed to anticipate. Maybe with all that wisdom and experience you mentioned, it's one thing that really is uncommon in this world is for pirates to cooperate. It's a thing that I think is the ultimate downfall of the Rocks pirates. All these really powerful people, Oda keeps driving home, right? That their main issue is that they don't work together. We saw that with the Blackbeard pirates. That's their big weakness. The reason that they basically failed, even though they did capture Garp, they basically failed overall, because they couldn't work together and they had to get bailed out by Kuzan. I don't know. I just want to bring that up. I thought that was like kind of a nice reinforcement of what makes the Straw Hats special. It's not destiny, fate. Like, it's not that Luffy's a chosen one. It's that these people love and care about each other. And that's just such a key One Piece thing that I love that Oda still finds time and attention to that.
I like the idea that we might get a multi-Straw Hat fight. We haven't had one of those in quite some time. We always have the side battles, and sometimes you'll have a situation where like Brook will step in and assist Robin and Wano or something like that. But we haven't really had a full scale, like the gang takes down a big dude since like Thriller Bark, realistically. Yeah. I would love one of those.
Well, Sabaudi, right? They're all fighting together. But yeah, to your point, that didn't go super well.
Right. This would be a situation where maybe like not even to win the fight, but just to like give enough time to get out. We gotta, actually work together. That would be cool. I think that would be great to be the kind of undoing of the situation to at the very least escape.
Definitely agree. Still good stuff here. I'm just kind of like gliding through it at this point. The Buccaneer people, I know we're going to talk about that more here in a second. And I want to actually, I'll go to this where we have Kuma talking to Bonney. And he says, ever since I was a boy, I wanted to be a hero. Just like Nika, the warrior of liberation. He says that Nika is his idol. He appears from the blue with laughter and this rhythm. And so we kind of see this silhouette of like a little Bonney, very cute, and Kuma kind of like dancing. So we can at least kind of tell that if she is like a little kid, this could have happened semi recently, because he doesn't look old in that flashback, right? But anyway, she says
that begs a question. Do you think Kuma's body continues to age?
That's something I have been wondering, because I keep coming back to this thing where I just don't think that she's his biological daughter. And so that's actually what I was going to bring up, because there's the line that Bonney says, "Will he come and free me too?" And that's kind of confusing, right? Because ostensibly this would be in the Sorbet Kingdom, where Kuma became the king somehow and was no longer a slave. And this, I guess, would be before, like when he was Kuma the Tyrant, before he was a Shichibukai. So he's not a warlord yet, theoretically. What would Bonney need to be freed from? And there's a theory I came across actually along these lines. A few people have speculated that Kuma this is a Star Wars thing, where Kuma is taking care of somebody else's kid for them. So kind of like Bonney is like Leia, and here we go. You ready, Travis? You want to know who Luke is?
Okay.
It's our best friend, Monkey D. Luffy. He's going to be king of the pirates.
Monkey. Oh, is that what we're going with now?
There's a theory that Jinny, who appears at the end, is Bonney and Luffy's mother. And one of the reasons that Bonney and Luffy are so similar, and the cadence of their names, Bonney, Luffy, Jinny, Connie, like all these characters related to Kuma, is because Kuma was her like adopted father, and the dragon was Luffy's adopted father. Because remember, or do I have that backwards? Because there's a whole thing where it seems like Garp and Dragon are also kind of in a weird adoptee sort of thing.
That was theorized, but his flashback with Kuzan more or less locks it in that like Dragon is Garp's biological son.
Arguably, we could parse that out, right? It's one. I think it's still an open question, but it's definitely a point on that side.
I think a young Marine against his will named Monkey D. Dragon is going to appear during this flashback as well. Because this sure looks like an inciting incident that might justify his own motivations.
Yeah.
So we may get an answer to that. I won't discount that portion, but that's an interesting idea. Because just before the little flashback in Bonnie's memory is the way Saturn responds to her. Because she says, "You killed my father," and he doesn't go, "Yeah, I did," or anything like that.
He surprised.
He goes, you mean Kuma?
Mm-hmm.
Who else would she mean, my guy? What does that mean?
And I think the thing that bolsters this even more is the fact that what's his face, Saturn, says that Kuma is the last survivor of the extinct Buccaneer people. And if the Buccaneer people it was literally a crime, right? Kuma was sent into slavery, as we're about to look at, right? Just for being a Buccaneer, him and his father and the mother. So like we've seen time and again that Saturn doesn't have the same concern about Bonney, as if he knows that she's not really a Buccaneer. So if she was the biological daughter of Kuma, then they would care about her, right?
Well, and then there's the other side of this, right? Is that she's not anyone's biological daughter.
Yeah, this has been my theory. So I said a while back, same time as when I said that I believe that Kuma's flashback there was at God Valley, that I think that Bonney is a clone, is another way to look at it, that she's a clone of Jinny, who would be Bonney or Kuma's wife. So the idea would be, and this kind of adds to it, that Kuma and Jinny could have gotten married, lived in the Sorbet Kingdom, and the problem is that he doesn't want to have a biological kid, because if he has a biological kid, they're going to be hunted as a Buccaneer for the rest of their lives. And that kind of goes into the deal he makes with the world government. And one thing that he could do is clone his wife. So then he would have a daughter who wouldn't be sold into a slave and go through the same things he did. And who's the person who could help him with that? You're right. Dr. Vegapunk. That's the thing that would bring them together. So that to me would be like the missing link of all this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Let's be clear. A new character who's adorable and sweet and immediately has character presence the second they enter the story, they are one of two things. They are either Sabo or they are going to die. So we've never seen this character before, despite her visual similarities to Bonney. And let's be clear, we're very much meant to be seeing Bonney here. The eating, which is hilarious because they're slaves and emaciated, so like they clearly stole that while they were doing all of this. Very, very much respect that. But like, you're supposed to immediately go, that looks like a jewelry Bonney. Like, you're supposed to make that connection. We're supposed to be thinking down these roads. But I don't think she lives through this flashback. How long this flashback actually goes is the question. But I mean,
so your alternate thing is that
my alternate thing is that this is a grief thing. This is a.
I see. So yeah, it's not that Kuma and her get married or whatever. It's that she wants to
have a kid.
Yeah,
he's Django Fett, not Bail Organa.
There you go. Yeah, we'll keep that going. No, I think that's a very reasonable pull as well, quite honestly. And I do like that a lot better than the whole idea of like Luffy and Bonney being siblings.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked at this rate if Oda even bothers to name Luffy's mother.
Right.
Is my main concern there.
No, he did. Crocodile.
We've
been through this.
But like in general, like he's more or less said before. That being said, I also do think Dragon is actually Luffy's father. Only because father. It would be kind of crap, I think, for them to pull that stunt this late in the game. But more importantly, Dragon really seems to understand Luffy, which is weird because there's no indication that these two characters have ever shared a room. But every time he's talking about Luffy or thinking about Luffy or inadvertently or directly helping Luffy, he's always doing it fully supportive of his son's actions.
Yeah, he's a bit of a Yasop in that way.
Yeah, it's like he's not winning any parental awards like any other father in this series.
No kidding. But that's an understatement.
But at the very least, like, he's at least practicing what he preaches, right? He created a situation for Luffy to live as free as possible from the moment he was born, whether that's from tragedy or for some other reason, whatever. He basically was like, hey, he's going to live on this island. Hey, there's going to be somebody who like makes sure he eats right. And, worst case, my dad will teach him how to survive in the wilderness, because he's a monster. But other than that, I am not going to try to push this kid in any direction. I want him to live the life that he chooses to live. And the second that he makes that decision and he goes out into the world, I am going to do everything in my power when necessary to make sure that he gets there. And, there's that line that he does when he talks about like the day they're going to meet and stuff. And he's kind of giving this inspirational speech to the wind. I just like, it's weird how much he actually seems to understand Luffy in general. I think like father, like son, literally.
Yeah, I think that's all very fair and good to point out. I'm kind of looking at this spread right now, these 2 pages where it's pages 10 and 11, where we see basically Kuma's backstory start to play out. And it's one of those like 2-pagers where I'm like, this is an entire anime episode that we're going to get. I don't doubt, where it's going to be like going into the Sorbet Kingdom, Kuma's birth, and I think they're going to fill in a lot of these details, but then following like so much stuff just kind of happens, like time blasts through to like the birth of Kuma. He's a big, healthy boy. Clap has to try to flee for being a buccaneer. They get captured. They try to endure slavery. I mean, these panels are just so depressing. We see Kuma just quickly getting mistreated and abused as a slave. And his father telling him that his mother is dead. I mean, it is just...
This is some of the most bleak One Piece has ever been. Like, genuinely.
It's up there. It really is. One thing, I think the Sorbet Kingdom, I think it's a revelation that it's in the South Blue. I don't think that was ever revealed before. At least I remember looking into it at one point because I remember wondering if it was in the New World and if that was one of the islands we were going to go to before Elbaf, if we do. But yeah, no, I think it was like one of the places where like, oh, maybe that's where Winter Island or maybe, no.
Well, and it looks like a desert region too, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's like which makes sense with the ice cream motif. It's so hot. Everyone wants ice cream and treats. Fun. But yeah, so we see the Sorbet Kingdom here, and we know Kuma's going to come back to it. We still don't know what's going to happen there with like, how does he become a tyrant? Is he really a tyrant? All that stuff. Jinbei knew about this stuff, right? I guess at one point, Jinbei and Kuma were, I guess, comrades in arms as long as warlords go. Yeah, very bleak, very bleak. Eventually, his father goes to him and says that Kuma is strong, he can survive. The Warrior of Liberation is going to come and save him. And then that's when he starts to explain the sun god Nika to him. We see the famous silhouette, the iconic, Gear 5th Luffy. Sun god Nika. So a legendary warrior whose story is told throughout their Buccaneer heritage. Huge revelation there that apparently the Buccaneers, I guess they seem to me like a race that's like an offshoot of the Giants, related to piracy maybe in some way. I guess we could theorize that Joy Boy was a Buccaneer.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is like this could be kind of the gap that connects it. I don't think Joy Boy's race is going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Is he a giant? Sure.
I think it'll be special. I think it'll be brought up. I think it'll be a thing.
It'll be confirmed. I just don't think it's going to I don't think like a huge plot point's going to bend too much on this. But a Buccaneer where he's big, but not necessarily so big that he could do something like move the Noah himself would seem a little bit more feasible in that regard. So I think this does open up more doors for those pieces to come together.
Speaking of the Noah, as I kind of already mentioned, the whole thing with, one day he'll show up and take you out under the sun to the freedom of the sea. I mean, this is straight out of what Orihime says in the Fishman Island arc. This is what she says that like her dream is to unite all the people, right? Bringing down all the barriers, the red line, making it so that like everyone is in one ocean. That's what would bring about the all blue. And that's certainly something that, a lot of people said, is that Luffy's dream? Maybe that's a little too complicated to be Luffy's dream, but it is something that, going back as far as I want to say Alabasta. I remember people were talking about One Piece being that, like the story being like, oh, it's the One Piece itself is something related to like bringing down the red line. So there's true freedom. It's one of the all-time One Piece series, right? So I'm just kind of curious. Did you have anything that stuck out to you about that you're like, well, maybe it's this?
Well, what really sticks out to me, what I guess stuck out right away to me, is this answers a question from Wano when Who's Who was fighting Jinbei. Because Who's Who heard all these stories, and he was used to set Nika up properly so that when we got the Gear 5th reveal several chapters later, it all kind of clicked together. But now we can see how this legend has survived, even against the world government's best efforts, even with the most freedomless people in the entire One Piece universe. It's because it's literally encoded into the legacy of an entire species.
Yeah.
And that species is at least valuable enough. Yeah. Oh, your brain just got
Oh, Trav, because you brought up Who's Who, right? And Who's Who, his whole thing was that they had the fruit, right? The Gomu Gomu no Mi, which ended up being the Nika fruit, right?
That's right.
And Shanks and his crew knew to steal that fruit, right?
We believe they at least took it. I don't know if it was.
But it would make sense that they would know of its existence because of Shanks' connection to the Celestial Dragons.
Riddler YouTube screenshot, but it's Shanks. Does he know? Is my primary Shanks like I need to know this about him theory?
Well, I just bring that because we see the chests in the next panel. We actually see the 6. Or at least it looks like it's just 6 chests with devil fruits, ostensibly. They look a lot like the fruit that has the Gomu Gomu no Mi in the first chapter of the series. And so I think the idea is that these are all mythical zoans. And so I would think that like if the mythical zoan fruits are things that are passed around to the celestial dragons, and they weren't supposed to fall into the hands of, Kaido getting the fish fruit. Where did he get that? Big Mom. How did Big Mom get that? God Valley. I think that this is like that big incident of like they managed to get these fruits and cause chaos. I think this could be where Marco gets his fruit because who's there? Whitebeard. And he got his fruit at a super young age. This could be where Orochi got his fruit because that could have been stolen by someone. All this stuff. But the main point, I guess Blackbeard's fruit too. The main point is that one of those fruits would probably not be the Gomu Gomu no Mi because there's no way the world government would distribute it, right? But
they literally couldn't get a hold of it.
Yeah. So if it's something, though, that they know about that's connected to the Garling family, there being a thing where they know of these mythical zones and try to track them down, I would just think that early on in Shanks's career, we know stuff goes down between him and Blackbeard, for instance. We know that what would be one of Shanks' primary goals maybe would be finding that devil fruit. So I don't know. That's kind of on my mind.
Yeah, what does Shanks know consistently but nags at me? Every time we get a little bit more information, I come back to, where does Shanks fit into all of this? We know, I think at this point we can at least say with some level of confidence that it was in fact Shanks in the chamber with the Gorosei, which means Shanks joins the very small number of people who get to sit in their presence and not have their heads exploded.
I don't know. I still feel like that could be a relative of Shanks.
It still could be, but at least right now, based on what we know and kind of where things are going, it would be. I would be surprised if we just got like a Shanks brother for him to face down or something instead of Garling himself. If that's where we're going.
They look so similar, though. And I mean, I guess it could be explained away by like the Garland family, the Figurling Garlings. There could be a whole thing where it's like they're all like all the Holy Knights are related to that family, and that it could be a Targaryen thing. Ergo Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, where they inbreed basically, and so that's why they all look strikingly similar, possibly.
Well, yeah, which I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny that like this is one of the very few hot celestial dragons, right? Because you kind of assumed that they were all inbreeding, but at the same time, look at the real life history of slavery. Let's be honest, that blood wasn't always so pure. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I don't know too much to make of that, but it does seem strange that it does seem strange that Shanks possibly targeted this ship to get a fruit, possibly knew what that fruit was. That fruit ends up with Luffy, and he's just cool with it, knowing what we know now. And one of those things that we know now is that there's a high likelihood that even though Shanks might not know what the One Piece is, he at least has a decent knowledge of what it takes to get there. He has a decent knowledge of what Roger's plan was, and presumably has further understanding of who Joy Boy was and the things that happened around him. So, this brings me back to, has all of this been not necessarily like chosen one stuff, but some markers that Roger has set in place for a certain person, whoever that's supposed to be, to make sure they get to Laughtail, and only that person, rather than say a Blackbeard or something. You have things like Crocus at the start of the Grand Line. You have Rayleigh at the halfway point. Shanks has advised at least one of these men about Luffy specifically. Did Crocus know about the fruit? He was there at the end. When he saw Luffy, you would think maybe something triggers in that, or maybe none of them knew. Maybe this is the missing piece, is because they didn't know what fruit it was. I don't know, and we won't until Shanks finally decides to tell us something.
Yeah. We're not going to do the whole thing, right, where, the One Piece is the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and now that means Shanks is going to go after it by killing Luffy, and he waited for the right time. I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. I
mean, no, it being like it could be. This is the thing. What the heck is that, right? Like, it can't be a weapon. There's weapons all over the place. We have ancient weapons, and they can be operated without what the One Piece would be. But it has to be something that just, it is in the Gorosei's ultimate interest to make sure it does not get found.
Ooh, what if it's money? It's like a lot of money. Like they go and they find the One Piece, and it's just
treasure.
It's a ton. It's like so much money. It's like, oh no, I bought the Gorosei. And they're like, shoot, that's why we didn't want somebody to get this.
It's just like, oh shoot, now we're slaves. Uno exactly. Reverse card.
That's what I'm going with from now on. Oh, the One Piece is money. Duh.
It's money.
What did you think it was?
I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, is it a symbolic thing? Whitebeard says no. So, hey, stupid note. Did Whitebeard know?
That's the thing. I think that he didn't. Maybe he knew but didn't care, or maybe he read the theories that it's being sake or it's the song or whatever, and he's just like, well, I don't care about that.
Roger told him something, right? Like he's like, Teach, you're not the man Roger's looking for. Like he knew something. He took it to his grave, but his actions kind of rebooted the Great Pirate Era again. Is this a thing where Roger's plan was more than just get people out into the sea so that the timing for whatever the timing necessary that he wasn't ready for happens? Maybe there is more to it than that. Maybe this is the first actual hint that there may be more out there on the sea for Roger, and his big takeaway from this ends up being, hey, maybe we should go back to Lodestar Island. Maybe we need to get to Lodestar Island, and maybe we need to look into this some more. I don't know.
Well, shifting gears, pun not intended because it doesn't involve Luffy. We at least now have an idea of why the rock pirates would show up, why Roger would show up to this island. And it's the devil fruits, right? We've seen this foreshadowed before. This is the setup of Dressrosa. It brought all those pirates out there to try to compete for Ace's fruit, right? So we kind of have an indication now, like, what is the treasure that everybody wants? It's these 6 devil fruits. Assuming they're devil fruits, I think it's pretty high chance that that's what we're looking at in this panel. But I'll admit, it's not 100% confirmed. And yeah, I mean, I would assume they're the mythical Zoans that we've been following along with the story. Minus, I mean, maybe Sengoku's is there too. Who knows? A young Sengoku will be there, right? What if this is how he got his? Going through the list, I mean, we don't... Are there 6 confirmed mythical Zoans we've covered off here besides Luffy's? So we have Sengoku. We have Marco, Kaido's,
Kaido's,
that's
Yamato's.
3. Yamato's, yeah. Oh, we're forgetting some big ones, huh?
We're gonna get
4.
corrected so hard in the Discord.
In my defense, I'm sleepy and tired. Okay, I'm Googling because Google is
that's
helpful.
The power of the internet.
Mythical Zoan fruits. Let's see what happens. All known mythical Zoan. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. So there's Model Nika covered. That's there. Oh, stronger.
Stronger, right?
Yeah.
The
I
horse
forgot
fruit,
they
gave
type.
A horse a devil fruit.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So that would be 5 if that's really what it is. There's Yamato's.
Katarina Devon.
I forgot that's a mythical one, huh? So that's 6. Orochi. That's who we were forgetting. And then we have the Hito no Mi. That's the one that Onimaru uses when he transforms into the monk yokai. And then we have Kaido's. So I would guess, yeah, it's probably a couple of those. I would say probably not the Blackbeard ones because he was hunting those devil fruits. But we don't know. I mean, it could be one of those things too where those Blackbeard devil fruits were owned by other people at some point. And I still think that Blackbeard's fruit is probably a mythical Zoan of some sort, but it could just be a paramecia. We really don't know.
Would devil fruits be even interesting to celestial dragons?
Yeah, because they would use them on their slaves, right?
But that would just give their slaves power.
Yeah. I think they treat them like Pokemon.
Oh, you think they're like cockfighting human beings?
Yeah. I think we're going to even see that like in this. Like, I think they're going to be using like powered up people in order to win the competition for them. Like, we'll have Fugler and Garling, but like, because otherwise, like, what's the point? Like, he's just going to be...
Yeah, I just read this as just straight up most dangerous game, Mr. Burns crap, but that's an interesting
it's definitely
idea.
That too. Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of when I saw the chest. I was like, oh, like Pokemon. Like, that's what we're doing here. Because like that's what they wanted with Kuma, right? That's what they want, like powerful slaves, because they know they can control them. It's a very Wheel of Time thing, and not to bring in a totally unrelated thing, media wise. We also find out, God Valley, it's in the West Blue. This confirms a lot of stuff. I mean, for the longest time, people have been like, wait, why does Shanks say that his hometown is in the West Blue? Well,
now we know.
We know that in God Valley, like, he was found in a treasure chest. That's confirmed canon. That he's part of the Figureland family.
Because the sake he brings Whitebeard is supposed to be really, really good, and God Valley's just rich in
natural resources.
Mm-hmm. Oda, you do it again.
It's unaffiliated with the land of, or it's unaffiliated with the world government, and people consider it to have the audacity of being called the Valley of God. Now, this has brought in some interesting theories, one of which was brought up in the Discord by, I believe it was Hippo who linked it to us. So Hippo linked something from Reddit on the name God Valley, And the idea here is that this is a payoff from the last chapter when Oda teased the Monsters Ryuma one shot, because that manga, and which is going to be an anime soon, actually shows Ryuma in a kind of Western style town that kind of fits like what we're looking at here on God Valley. And not only that, but we see the mountain, and it looks like the mountain was split in half. So in Monsters, Ryuma fights a dragon. And so the idea would be that he's the one who created this whole thing, and it's called God Valley after him for being a sword god. That's one theory. I think it's very interesting. What do you think?
Oh, that would be interesting. That would explain why, after all this time, the desire to make sure it's something that people can consume content-wise. It's been available before, of course, but like you can't open up Shonen Jump, for example, and read it right this second. But an anime adaptation would probably push Shueisha to do this. It's a good anniversary celebration either way. It wouldn't surprise me for Oda to pull from his own inventory of stories. Why not?
Yeah, definitely. Just because I think that this is canon as well. Like, it had to have happened somewhere, and it is a confirmed canon prequel. So I like the idea a lot. I think it's great. It adds to the lore, it adds to the background, but it doesn't. You're not going to feel lost if you don't know it. Like, it's just like extra flavor to the story. So I think that'd be really cool. I don't even know if they would
Zoro
confirm
fans
it here.
some food, you know?
Yeah. Zoro gets a little bit of a little treat. So Garling killing the king, and just like kind of mercilessly like that. That sword and like just his whole getup and everything. I've been thinking a lot about like, who does this guy fight endgame wise? Because he's clearly, boosting up to be one of like a primary antagonist. And yeah, that's something that's on my mind. I guess
like
it could be a lot of people. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, the handicap will be used. What a Slimo for one, but like that's some Mihawk swagger.
That's the thing, is like, so are we to assume then that Mihawk is stronger than this guy? Here comes the power scaling experts.
All right.
Ready to ruin your evening.
Right. I mean, again, like, this is one of those things where it's like, we just didn't know, right, that this existed. We didn't know. So what does it mean to be the strongest swordsman in the world? Does it, because he's a name that's recognizable, again, to regular people.
Right.
Does anybody in this know that?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's like, do people know the Holy Knights exist? Maybe they don't.
Because do they? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, they knew this guy back then, but maybe they don't anymore. We know that the Holy Knights have been dispatched to certain islands to kind of rein things in.
Do you think Morgan's... Well, I mean, it has to take something serious, right? Do you think Morgan's reports on God Valley?
No. Well, I thought you were going to say that Morgan's is a Holy Knight.
No, just like that like that's kind of one of those things that I'm now asking, now that we're branching back out into the world and the other blues. What do people know? What information are they getting? Does Whoop Slap remember the God Valley incident reporting? Right. Does he know an island in the West Blue disappeared?
I think people know that it disappeared. And by the way, I think that how funny it would be if like Morgan's is here too, just cause, and like he gets his fruit somehow here. I just kind of want to start. It's like the clone thing. It's like it opens the floodgates for like, who else is at God Valley?
This is where Scopper Gabon transforms into a bird, and you go, oh no!
and literally like the whole thing with Ivankov too, like showing up here. And we've already kind of touched on it. Like, is Dragon going to show up here? And like there's all kinds of things I think that we have to gear up for.
Ivankov is such a perfect character to bring in at this extremely bleak moment. Yes. Because like this is literally hell, right? This is literally hell. And now, just like in Impel Down, a drag queen has arrived to make the world a better place. You know what I mean? Just like it's so perfect. That if anything, I'm not a fan of things retroactively impacting stories, but I do have to say that like this really does put a different perspective on Ivankov's reactions during Marineford to seeing Kuma doing what he was doing.
What do you mean?
Well, like there's when Kuma's deployed and he's shooting laser beams at everything, and Ivankov is yelling at him is like, oh, just like this, you're going to fire laser beams at your friends. That has to be far more hurtful now to read, knowing that they've literally known each other all this time. more than just comrades in arms in the Revolutionary Army. Like I mean, if they get away from this, they grew up together. They're a crew. I guess one of these guys has to be the Sabo. if it's Dragon and Kuma and Eva, but we got another trio, and that it just always hurts. Like, it just makes it hurt that much more when you realize, oh yeah, they really did know each other this whole time.
There was a theory I came across too about Ivankov changing the gender of somebody at God Valley, but I can't remember who it's supposed to be. Did you hear about this? It was somebody. It was somebody. Man. It was like a big thing. Like, he changed the gender of somebody so that
so that they could hide their identity. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe become a crime lord of some sort.
A what?
Maybe become like a crime lord of some sort.
No, it's not Crocodile. It's somebody else. But it's kind of like along those lines.
I thought you were absolutely Jocelyn.
No.
Who are you saying for real?
No, literally like another character entirely. And I just genuinely, I can't remember who it is. Like, it was an interesting theory too. I'll try to think on it, but back to the chapter.
I completely thought you were getting me with that.
I mean, it does sound like me, doesn't it? Yeah, so we're going to do the most dangerous game here. And we see Saturn still looks old. It's 38 years ago. We've kind of seen hints of this. We've seen clues of this. Now the speculation starts again. Is Saturn really immortal? And I'm going to say, yeah, I think all the Gors, I think that they're like demons or some other race of demons that were once like in exile or outcasted from the ancient kingdom in the Joy Boy era, but then they had like some kind of rebellion. They waged some kind of war, took over the whole world, and then turned it all around on everybody else. Kind of like an Orochi Kurozomi kind of thing. I just think that's what they are. And like the whole yokai stuff, like they are just like devil demon types, and they want to keep control of the world, and they're very cruel. And I just think it fits. I have unsubscribed from the idea that they all use the law devil fruit over the years to make themselves immortal.
I would say Occam's razor is still a thing. It's a devil fruit is the most obvious thing. So like we can't just completely discount it, right?
Of course,
but there's a part of me that even wonders if it's even that, like they're all yokai or anything, or if this is all just somehow an extension of Emu himself, since he seems to have something very similar. And we know it seems very likely, just thanks to our fellow theorist Emporio Ivankov, that at least Emu did have the opioidomy surgery. So can that be extended out somehow? I think there may be a factor in that, because the Gorosei seem to be completely subservient to Emu. So if they all have similar powers, or their powers have a similar source, there has to be something that allows him to lord over them.
Well, yeah, I keep thinking too about like Doflamingo and the secret that he has over the world government. I know,
which I would think is Emu, right?
Either Emu or something related to what is happening here on God Valley, and we don't know it yet. But again, we don't know. So we don't know what we don't know. But I'm kind of keeping my eyes open for that, just because, I think that it's worth keeping in mind.
And how would Doflamingo have learned this, too?
Being a celestial dragon, right?
Well, I mean, do the other... Again, this is one of those things, we don't know what we don't know. Do the other celestial dragons know somebody sits on that throne?
Oh, you know what I just thought of too? Because I'm still kind of obsessing with the whole thing of the gender stuff. Could Ivankov change Yamato's biological stuff and turn Yamato into that?
Yeah.
Could we do that?
Yeah. I don't know if it's one of those things where, again, Yamato trans, yes, but is Yamato like actually dysphoric? I don't think so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's because it's like, dicey. It's dicey.
It's dicey because like Vivrecard says, she her, so she her king. So does she need to look like a man to be a man? I guess would be the question. That kind like it kind of seems like the point is no. I imagine Kiku would appreciate it for sure, but like, but in the case of Yamato, that's an interesting question. I mean, could absolutely Ivankov would be like absolutely, but is that what Yamato desires to like to physically transition? I don't know. That's an interesting. Somebody send that into the SBS. Give Oda a philosophical question.
There you go. There you go. All right. So Gorosei immortal. There we are, or seemingly. Okay. So then, yeah, the chapter ends with Kuma coming into contact with Jinny and Emporio Ivankov, and I think depending on what happens next, I want to bring up one thing that has been on my mind too about what happened at God Valley. It's before the Lulusia event. It's before they have the Mother Flame. So how did it just disappear? We can't really assume, right, that's the case. We can probably assume that Eni's Lobby is something that happened with an ancient weapon. I know we've already covered this on the pod, just recapping, right? So, the whole appears to be the same as Eni's Lobby. They probably used the real ancient weapon for that, but that would have been a long, 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 long time ago. So we can kind of cross that off of okay, Eni's Lobby, that's not where God Valley was. Got it. Okay. I kind of want to revisit a very old theory, but a good one. I think that God Valley is Thriller Bark. We know that Gecko Moria and most of his crew are West Blue folks. We know that there are a few clues as to this. That's where Captain John, his corpse is. It's where the corpse of Ryuma is. So there's a lot of bringing in of that. And there's a lot of regular people and pirates on Thriller Bark that are zombies. So it could make a lot of sense for Thriller Bark to be where a lot of the dead people from the God Valley incident are, and why it got moved essentially because it was turned into a ship. I know it's a little bit bonkers, and Travis is kind of looking at me like, how do I make John cry?
So I've pulled up an image of Thriller Bark.
Yes, and you're right. It looks exactly like God Valley.
I mean, it doesn't, but that doesn't. But what it does, what it does look like notably is the top of a castle. Like there's a castle, and that's where Moria is, and then there's a big forest, and then there's castle walls around it. Like it's walled, and then the ship itself then surrounds it. So
I don't think they kept the island or the mountain, but
yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the whole thing. It could be that's what's left of it.
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
So I could entertain that. I could entertain the idea that and maybe Moria doesn't even fully know that. But
yep.
But maybe, I mean, it doesn't look like it, but we haven't seen much yet of the region. And since we are doing the big we're hunting human beings for sport thing, I have a feeling we're going to get to know the geography of the island. So maybe we'll see this get played out. But you're right. They do have to have a way to wipe it off the map.
I agree.
Anything else? There has to be some way to hide islands because no one's found Laugh-Tale by accident or anything, presumably.
So that's about everything I had here. I mean, I think we're going to have just kind of the next chapter is going to be crazy. I mean, we're going to see, I think, some of the precursors to the revolutionary stuff. We're going to get an understanding of why Kuma does what he does, I assume, and kind of what shapes him. But I think the thing I'm still hung up on is just the connection between Kuma and Nika is just, I mean, it's significant. And I really, really think that there's something there. And I really think that it's something that I think is going to explain so much of why Kuma did the things he did, why he protected the Thousand Sunny at a certain point, why he did what he did with Zoro and allowed them to live, his programming and how that works. If he really is just a robot and that's connected to the giant robot, and there's something connected to Luffy's powers that overrides the fact that he doesn't have a will. I mean, it's stuff like that I'm really keeping an eye out for. But was there anything else that you wanted to touch on? Are you ready for the world's most dangerous game?
I want to touch on a couple of things. First off, I heard this suggested elsewhere, and I think it would be just a perfect conclusion now that we know this. Bonney's in a hot spot right now, but by the end of this, I think it would be a good end for Bartholomew Kuma as a person, as a man, to actually see the Warrior of Liberation save his daughter, whether she's his real daughter or not. Knowing that Nika is real, at least in the form of a devil fruit, and that his daughter is going to be safe.
Yes, very good point.
I think more than likely he's going to be done after this. I think we are nearing the end of Kuma the man.
And Luffy saving Bonney is what would save him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like bring out one last emotion from the man. That was once Kuma. I think that's a good way to end this arc. But on that note, considering we're about halfway through October right now, and
Happy Halloween.
Jump likes taking breaks towards December, regardless of Oda's own schedule. How long do you think this flashback arc is going to be?
Great question. I'm going to say that it's going to be shorter than the kind of New World detour we just did with, Shanks and Elbaf and all that stuff. That was about, 10 chapters or so? I think this is going to be 7 or 8 on that. You think it's going to be longer?
I confess this is mostly a selfish prediction. This is what I would like to see happen. I would love for this to be like an end of Act 2 situation for Egghead Island, and we get an Odin-style flashback that just busts the doors wide open with just leagues of new information, and we get to actually spend some real time with these characters.
I don't see that personally. I think that there's too much he can't reveal yet. Is the thing. I think we're going to get
not necessarily about God Valley or necessarily about anything else, but I would love to see Kuma age through this, because that's what we saw Odin do. We saw his entire life. We didn't just see his flashback. We saw Odin's life, and I would love to see just Kuma, especially now that we know where he's had his little paws all over the place. You don't have to reveal everything. You just have to bring Akuma into these spots and have those parts of his life shown off that just drip feed us a little bit more here and there, and then move him along to the next part of his story. If this is really the last time we are going to get this chance, if this arc is really the end of Kuma, seems very likely, given how much buildup we've had, how much time we've spent thinking about him as a character, I think the more time we get to do this, the better.
I mean, I don't disagree. I just hope that it doesn't mess up the pacing of everything, because it's a weird place to leave off. But so you're thinking 15 to 20 chapters then?
I mean, it's basically what they did with Odin, right? Was just right before the next big fight, everything's tense. The plan was leaked, and you don't know what's going to happen next, and so they do the Odin flashback to kind of break that tension a little bit. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. Again, it's mostly a selfish thing. I don't think it necessarily throws off.
I don't know. I could see it kind of cutting both ways, not being quite as long as Odin flashback being up there. I just think, what is this arc at that point?
What the heck is this arc? Right? It's everything. It's a saga in and of itself at this point.
It really is.
It can't be. We're in the final saga.
Yeah, I mean, so far we're 40 chapters into this saga at this point, something like that. Because this began, I think, around 1059.
Yeah,
I'll double check, but yeah, I think it's been going on since around then. So yeah, more like 30 chapters. But yeah, Egghead Island arc manga chapter start. My Google searches are riveting, aren't they? Oh, look at that! I didn't get an immediate answer. 1058. I was only one off. That's not bad, right? Okay, so if it's 1058, then yeah, we're about 34, 35. Or no, more than that, because we're at 95. So we're at 30, what's math? 37? So 37 chapters in. To your point, I mean, when was the last time a One Piece arc was that short? I guess so. Reverie?
Yeah. that would be right.
Yeah, I don't know, but okay, we don't have to speculate on that. That's the future John and Travis to deliberate. But I think that's it.
Indeed.
Then was that the last thing you had?
That is the last thing that I had. Here's hoping we get a lot of juicy tidbits after the break.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. I'm double checking the Discord to see if anybody else had something that they added to the discussion. I think Quinn said at this point it's definitely going to be Kuma showing up and saving the day to neatly transition us from this F-lock egghead down as the time skip equivalent of Sabaody, but how great would it be if the robot just shows up and wrecks Saturn? Also excited to see what the implications of Bonney being the last Buccaneer turns out to be. And then we had a little back and forth because I don't see that she's a Buccaneer, but we'll see. I also brought this up.
That's the real question.
I said, okay, so I went back to the chapters where we see Kuma leaving the revolutionaries all of a sudden because I was curious of the drone's liberation, Luffy going gear 5th against Luffy. So this is what I brought up before. Line up with him being summoned like the giant robot. Interestingly, Kuma leaves Dragon just a couple chapters before that fight, and right after he's seemingly more repaired, and almost immediately after, Vegapunk accidentally causes an explosion with a giant robot. And if you look closely at the explosion, it looks like a radar or a sound wave. So the idea that I brought up there was that maybe what summoned Kuma wasn't Luffy going gear 5th, but it was the giant robot accidentally being activated by Vegapunk. So, bit of a stretch, probably, but I just wanted to bring it up. Yeah, why not?
Radio signals exist, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's that. We'll be back next week we're doing our anime roundtable on Frieren. I don't know if we have decided or determined who our guest is going to be for that, but we'll let you all know when we know. And Travis. It's happening. The Kuma flashback.
It's happening.
The hype is real. We've waited a long time.
I've never been so hyped to see someone's truly miserable life.
There you go. And you're like, and I have watched Oppenheimer. All right. We'll see y'all later.